What up, y'all? In this video, we're going to be going over the gunplay in Valorant. So we're going to be doing a deep dive onto the statistics of every weapon, the situations where certain weapons should be bought, and how to play to all these weapons' different strengths. At the end of the video, we're going to cover Phantom versus Vandal and why, spoiler alert, the Phantom is better. But we have a deep dive at the end of the video as to why you should be buying the Phantom over the Vandal almost always. So stick around or skip ahead if that's what you came here for to the end of the video for that. But let's get right into it. So we'll start with the sidearms, the pistols. You'll notice that every sidearm other than the shorty and the sheriff, you have increased movement speed on. So that's going to be one of the assets you want to use when you're in these gunfights. Starting off with the classic, you want to be as close as possible. The classic is obviously the worst weapon in the game other than the shorty. And just to clarify, the reason I believe the shorty is the worst gun in the game is because A, you have to spend $200 to get it, and B, it's a one and done weapon guaranteed. And even then, if you do get that kill with the shorty, it is like you're guaranteed to die. So sometimes with other weapons you might be able to get multi kills or be able to get out, the shorty you can't. So because it's also, I think, less of a guaranteed kill than even like a right click on the classic is, because you have to get both of those shots off, and a lot of times before you get that second shot off, you get flicked onto or you know, just killed from something else before you even get that second shot off to get the kill. So, and obviously it limits your range severely, and if they don't come to exactly where you wanted them to go, you're just screwed for the rest of the round. So I really don't like buying the shorty ever. So save your $200, just keep the classic if you were thinking about buying the shorty. But anyway, back to the classic. You want to play as close as possible. The only redeeming quality the classic has really is the fact that you have slightly faster movement speed than like a rifle, and the right click. So you can kind of, if someone runs into you unsuspecting and you get a nice right click off and do 130 or 100, what's the math, 156 damage if you get like lucky and get 2 in the head from the right click. But the right click is a really useful tool for the classic because you can jiggle peek, you can, it's almost the same accuracy while moving as it is standing still with the right click. So if you're just trying to like strafe across and maybe get a lucky few shots in, that's what the classic is useful for, as well as like jumping and shooting. So if you know somebody's 1 HP, and obviously if you've ever tried to play whack-a-mole or shoot somebody that's running behind the container on B side on bind, it's very hard to hit. So if you can just like jump and right click and do the 26 damage that you need to finish the kill off, that's very, very useful as well. Because it's really the only gun in the entire game where you have reasonable accuracy while jumping. So that's the redeeming quality on the classic. But other than that, probably the worst gun in the game. But it's free, obviously, so do what you can with it. The Ghost, probably next up we'll talk about. Obviously it's more capable long range than both the classic and the frenzy, but when you're going into rounds where the enemy team has either specters or rifles, it's going to be better up close even still than at long range. Like obviously you're more capable long range, but you're definitely going to want to use it up close. Use that once again. All these pistols other than the sheriff and the shorty, you are moving faster than rifles or faster than your enemy would be used to using those guns. So use run and gun to your advantage. Range, if you're in a long range fight and you have to be, and your opponent misses their spray, that's exactly where you want them. You want to kind of just keep strafing, use that movement speed to your advantage, keep tapping, strafe and tap, try to get that couple of headshots you need to kill, because it's only if you get the headshot, it's 2 headshots to kill at super far range, or a headshot 2 body. So try to do that if you can. Try to get them to miss their spray. Keep moving and strafing, because you're not going to just straight up be able to spam your ghost and outtrade whoever has the Phantom or Vandal on the other end. So use it that way. Next is the Frenzy. One of 3 SMGs in this game, but it's a sidearm. I really like buying the Frenzy if I'm running an operator and having that as my sidearm, because it's the best alternative up close. Obviously, if I have an op, I'm not going to be pulling out my ghost for a fight anytime on purpose, or my sidearm anytime, unless they're up close. So that's why I like the Frenzy. It comes in handy in a lot of those situations where you wouldn't want to use your operator. But the Frenzy, man, is the ultimate. The SMGs in this game in general are the ultimate run and gun weapons. Obviously, the Frenzy, the Stinger, and the Spectre, all SMGs, and they all have the same movement speed. It's all faster than the movement speed's all faster than a rifle. So use run and gun to your advantage in this game. Clearly, the developers designed the game this way. They wanted running and gunning, at least especially with the SMGs, to be a viable option. So no matter how much people call you bad, like CSGO players or like traditional TAC FPS players will say that you're bad and you don't know how to play the game. But when you're at a loadout disadvantage like that and they have a rifle and you don't, you need to do everything you can to win that fight. So run and gun as much as possible. So Frenzy falls into that category. It's my favorite buy when I only have like $900 to spend, or 900 credits rather. Like I'd rather buy Frenzy light armor than a Sheriff and no armor, because you have to be pinpoint accurate with the Sheriff and not with the Frenzy. Plus with the Frenzy, I get the opportunity to run and gun to make it harder for them to kill me too. So that's my favorite buy if I have limited credits to spend. And then the last sidearm would be the Sheriff. Obviously, one tap potential, very powerful. You're really buying that to you know, just try to get that one shot headshot and get lucky really, and get kills that way. But once again, if you're buying any of these SMGs or pistols, it's especially into going into rifles, you're not expected to win that round, right? The rifles cost significantly more than these weapons for a reason. They're better. But this is just, you know, tips on how to hopefully win you some of those eco rounds. And or if the rest of your team is buying or you're forcing and that's the only option, these are the only options you have, or on like your bonus round, for example, that's just how you'd want to play these situations. But yeah, the Sheriff, the one-shot headshot, it does have high bullet penetration through walls. It does more damage through all surfaces compared to like an SMG or even rifles. But because, you know, there's 3 different tiers of bullet penetration: low, mid, and high. And obviously, the higher is going to do more damage to the same surface. And it also is capable of wallbanging some surfaces that are otherwise not wallbangable for medium and light penetration level weapons. So the Sheriff is capable of doing that. So example would be the wall on B main on Ascent would be like the main thing that comes to mind. The Sheriff is pretty hard to use, and you can't get that one-shot headshot that you're looking for past 30 meters. So I really think they need to buff the Sheriff. It's kind of an underwhelming weapon. So until that happens, don't buy it unless you're really feeling yourself, or you're really looking to spend only like 12 or 1500 bucks that round, and it just so happens to be the right buy to get you some armor as well. But don't get me wrong, Sheriff's not terrible, but I think there are better alternatives when it comes to light buying. Next up, we'll do the let's look at SMGs. So the Stinger. Everyone thinks the Stinger sucks since it got nerfed. I'm here to tell you that it does not. The reality is that before the Stinger got nerfed, it was the best gun in the game for $1,000, which is ridiculous. Now it's just a solid gun for 1,100 bucks. It's just much harder to use. So, but with a little bit of practice, whether it's in game or in DMs or in the range, and you learn how to control that recoil, the Stinger's still really good. Run and gun, still pretty accurate. The burst feature, really not the best. That's where it got hit the hardest, is you're not really able to ADS and get that 4-round burst accurately. But other than that, like up close, running and gunning, time to kill is great. You have an opportunity to live after you get a kill or get multiple kills. Really solid weapon. I definitely still prefer the Spectre if you can afford it, but sometimes you only have 1,500 instead of 2,000 credits to buy on your light buy. So Stinger's still a viable option. Doesn't suck, just not as good, not as broken as it once was. The last SMG is the Spectre, 1,600 credits. My personal favorite buy. Very, very accurate while running. 30 bullets, high fire rate, no tracers through smoke. Really good weapon. I get a lot of kills on eco rounds because I just get up in people's faces and run and gun, and it makes Immortals rage harder than anybody because they think I'm bad for doing that. But that's like I said, according to the developers, and apparently with how they developed the game or designed the game rather, that's how they want you to play with those weapons. So that's how I use them. That's the only way you're going to be able to, like, I'm not going to sit there and try to take a long range fight with a Spectre up against a rifle, which, by the way, that's another mistake I see you guys doing a lot. You take, you know, those 20, 30 meter fights with your Spectre up against that rifle and less health. Don't do that. If you're trying to push down C-Long on Haven and he's got a rifle and you've got a Spectre, try to take a garage, get a smoke in between you and him, something, because you're winning that fight almost never. So that's another thing. Position yourself. A lot of these maps have areas that are super tight and confined. Put yourself into a position to take fights there. Try not to take those long-range fights. There's, with the exception of Breeze, you can find a way to get into closer ranged fights on pretty much every map. So do that, position yourself that way. You're not going to want to take those long range engagements with an SMG up against those rifles, which are dominant at the longer ranges. We'll go shotguns next. The Bucky, man, that is one of the guns that after the nerf is almost useless. As far as like value goes, spending $900 for what that gun is going to give you is not worth it. I'd rather have, like I said, like the Frenzy Light or you know, even a Sheriff, because the left click up close can be a pretty useful tool, but for the most part, unless people are staggered and coming in one at a time, it's another one of those just one and done guns like the Shorty, except this one will actually kill people, unlike the Shorty. But yeah, man, the Bucky's not worth the $900. The right click is obsolete. There's no potential to kill with it. It's harder to use. Don't buy the Bucky. Just not worth the money. The Judge, on the other hand, pretty much a broken gun. One of the better guns in the game, especially on buy round, like round 2, after you just went pistol, when they have no armor. You're 1 or 2 shotting people almost across the map. It's ridiculous for a shotgun. Really, really, really good for multi-kills, especially. So that's why I say on that second round, when a lot of people, a lot of teams are going to be 5-man grouping and trying to push something really hard, really fast, and you have that Judge, and you can just tap, 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 tap 5 people in a row and do 100+ damage on every shot. It's ridiculous. The Judge is really, really good. You can really catch people off guard. If the rest of your team is buying, especially on characters that are capable of repositioning to get into closer confined areas, like Jet, like Raze, like Yoru, Omen, all those players that can force themselves and use their abilities to reposition to get into close range engagements. The Judge is very strong. Very good gun. Obviously, it's going to be a little limited on the range, which is why I like the Spectre just a hair more. But the Judge is going to be really easy to use. It's also really useful for tilting the enemy team, which is underrated. If you can get them pissed off and off their game, that helps a lot. So Judge, definitely worth buying if you have the finances to spend there. But I would lean a little more towards the Spectre. Judge, worth the buy, though. LMGs. So the LMGs are really underrated in this game. Area's pretty good on those round 2s. Both LMGs, both the Ares and the Odin, will have high penetration through walls, so doing extra damage through walls / being able to penetrate some of those surfaces that other weapons aren't. So, but the Ares is really good on that round 2 because, like I said, people are 5-man pushing stuff. If you're at range and you just spray them all down with an Ares, like playing CT on, or CT or stairs on like B Ascent, that way you can spray them as they walk out, or, you know, play A Heaven on Ascent. An example of some of those things where people are 5-manning into a site and you can just spray them all down. But most of the time you're going to get traded out. But as long as you get 2 or 3, it's worth it. So Area's pretty underrated. Another element of the LMGs is aim punch. They have more aim punch than any of the other weapons in the game. So when you get headshot specifically by an Ares or an Odin, your crosshair hits the sky. Like, your character looks up and you can't aim for anything. So really it's a pretty good option at long ranges if you're trying to, if you're not like the best aimer and you don't want to whip out the Vandal just to try to take the super long ranged engagements and you're trying to hold a long line of sight or whatever. Ares and Odin especially are very good for that. For the most part though, you're not going to want to buy either of these weapons on offense. The Ares and Odin both have, as LMGs, reduce your movement speed significantly. So if you're on offense, you're having to like swing and clear corners, and if your movement speed is lower, it's going to be really easy to hit you. On top of the fact that they have a wind-up time, if you're not aiming down sights, it takes a long time to get that fire rate up to where it's valuable, and they're not like perfectly accurate. So you want to be able to be pre-aimed, aiming down sights, so that when you're spraying down, you know, an opponent, you have that max fire rate available to you instantly. Much more useful on defense than offense. I wouldn't recommend buying them on offense really ever if you don't have to. But yeah, very useful on defense. The Odin, I think, is borderline broken, especially at elos below plat, and well, we'll say below plat, gold and below. The Odin's broken, man. People aren't just wide swinging and one tapping you, with the exception of the Smurfs in your game. The Odin's super strong on defense. You're gonna win most of your gunfights with that weapon on defense just by holding an angle, aiming down sight, and that rate of fire and damage is going to do the rest for you. So Odin, very, very good. Obviously a little more expensive, but only 300 credits more expensive than one of those rifles. So if you're on defense, Odin's worth picking up for sure. Ares only really would want to buy on those eco rounds, or that round 2 really is where it shines. But that's it for LMGs. Marshall, I don't love the Marshall, man. It got a buff a little bit ago for movement speed, so while you're aiming down sight, you're moving the same speed as you would with like a regular rifle. So it is good for trying to, if you're really trying to, like, let's say you're on an eco and you have $1,500 and you're trying to take out an op specifically. So you know somebody's opping. You can try to just wide swing and out aim them and you know, either get the one body shot and push them off the angle and then hit the second one, or if you're an aiming legend, hit them in the head. But really not that good. A lot of people buy it on round 2. It is pretty good at holding long lines of sight on round 2, because most of the time your enemy team's not going to force, and they're going to be, it does 101 damage, so if they don't have armor, they're going to one-shot, you're going to one-shot them. But a lot of times people do buy a light armor, or if they do force, then that weapon is going to be almost useless, because you're going to be looking into 5 people ready to shoot you back a lot of the time, or more than one person. Even any more than one person is too many. So I really don't like buying the Marshall unless you're trying to take out an op specifically, or if you're holding just the absolute longest line of sight and you can reposition behind cover. Breeze is probably the one map, with the exception. On Breeze, the Marshall can be pretty useful to just like try to get a quick shot, duck behind the, you know, many long line of sight cover areas that they give you. But other than that, I think the Marshall's pretty useless. Really don't buy the Marshall unless you're on Breeze. Operator, though, one of the best weapons in the game. Obviously, it costs $5,000 for a reason. Very, very powerful gun. One hit to the body. High wall penetration, so you can, you know, wall bang people. Super useful for holding long lines of sight. Obviously, given that it's a sniper. But it is pretty high risk, high reward. If you invest that 5,000, well, really you're investing 6,000 credits if you're buying an op, because if you're buying armor as well.
Push up, push up.
But if you invest that 5,000 credits into the operator and you don't get that kill, or you're caught out, it can be pretty costly. Or if you're on defense and you buy the op and then 2 of your teammates die on the other site, pretty hard to retake with an op because you move slower. It's harder to clear those angles. It can be really tough to retake, but it puts a lot of pressure on the opposing team, especially if you're using it on defense. If you're using it correctly, really, if you're using an op, you should be holding a different angle every round. Communicate with your team, get them to move. But if they don't know where you're playing, and they know that they're probably going to get one shot picking a certain angle,
nice shot.
It requires them to use a ton of utility, flashes, smokes, you know, a grenade, a molly, whatever. But anytime, like, just by having that gun and the enemy team knowing you have it, requires the enemy team to use a lot of utility, which, as we talked about, is pretty important as well. So it puts a lot of pressure on the enemy team to communicate, to use utility. You know, are they now not comfortable going in a certain area, knowing you have an op, that kind of thing. Operator, extremely oppressive, especially on the defensive side. Worth the investment, but definitely takes a little bit of practice. Obviously, because a lot of these maps are designed, kind of like I said, a lot of them have those close quarters areas. Jet's the kind of premier agent you want to use when you're using an operator, that because she can put herself into those close quarter situations, and if whether she hits or misses the shot, she can use her dash, reposition, get out, block the line of sight with the smoke, whatever. That's why Jet's so useful with the operator. But it's not the only agent that can opt. Just the safest agent to opt with. It gives you a little room for error with that. But operator, skill worth learning, especially at the lower ranks. You know, really, really, really oppressive because it takes a lot of utility and communication to be able to deal with an enemy operator that's hitting their shots. So, very, very good. Onto the rifles. The Bulldog, man, the Bulldog's trash. Especially for $2,100, I'd rather have a Spectre in almost every situation. The 3-round burst isn't terrible. Like if you're trying to, let's say you're going into round 2 with 3,100, so you want a long-range weapon and some armor, and you can get that 3-round burst and one tap somebody. It's because if they have the no armor, 3 body shots is 105, or a lot of times the recoil of the 3-round burst will carry you to the head. But spray, hard to control. Fire rate really low, damage just okay. I'm never buying the Bulldog unless I only have $3,100 or $3,200 specifically. That's the only time I'm buying that gun. But that gun really needs a buff realistically. Not like it's not unusable, but there's just not enough situations where it's good enough. So outside of the $3,100 and $3,200 range to complete your loadout, I don't really like. And even then, I'm probably buying a Spectre unless, like I said, I'm trying to hold that longer line of sight. So, Bulldog, unfortunately, until it gets buffed, probably don't pick it up unless you have to. Very situational, very, very situational. Guardian, on the other hand, very underrated weapon, $2,400. A lot of the time, if you want to have that extra armor, I personally like buying like Phantom or Vandal with light armor. That goes a long way. But if you want that heavy armor, you feel more comfortable that way. Or if you're holding a super long range angle, Guardian really, really good for that. Especially on Breeze, man, that's the best gun on the map on Breeze. Because you can really just hide in a lot of ratty long range angles. There's some decent wall bang spots with it. So, man, Guardian on Breeze, super useful. Other maps not worthless either. Guardian's worth a buy. Obviously, your aim has to be a little more on point that day, but Guardian's certainly worth buying if you'd rather have that heavy armor as compared to the Phantom or Vandal with light. Now, finally, the debate everyone's been waiting for: Phantom versus Vandal. The Phantom's just better, man. Sorry to tell you. It's not worth buying the Vandal on any map other than Breeze right now. The Phantom does everything better. Everything. Has better first shot accuracy, so it rewards you for being more accurate. So if you're more accurate, it helps you out. Higher rate of fire, so if you're trying to trace or track somebody, it gives you a little more room for error. So if you're not as accurate, it helps you out because its rate of fire is higher. Let me see. 5 extra bullets. Has 30 bullets per mag instead of 25. No tracers through smoke. So you can spam somebody through smoke and they can't see the general area which you're standing. Where if you're with the Vandal, they're going to be able to see where you're shooting from or have an idea of where you're shooting from. Not to mention, obviously, the higher fire rate is going to help you increase your chances of getting lucky. So that's big. And less recoil. It's easier to control the spray. So that helps you get multi-kills. It helps you if you miss the first couple of shots to be able to recover much easier. It also has a slightly faster tap reset. So if you're just like tapping, or you just finished one kill and are then getting ready to shoot again for another, it's going to have that first shot accuracy after shooting faster than the Vandal would. So just a better gun. The one thing the Vandal has over the Phantom, and this is the only thing, is that it has linear damage, meaning at any range it's going to do the same damage. 4 bullets to the body at all ranges, 1 shot to the head at all ranges. But it's just a harder gun to use. And that's the only pro. So like I said, on Breeze, it's useful for holding those long sightlines. But even then, I'm probably, if I'm really trying to hold those long sightlines and be oppressive at range, I'm buying the Guardian over the Vandal or the Op. So I'm not, there's very few situations. I mean, if you're really feeling your aim one day, it's you know, it's kind of nice to be able to hit those one-shot headshots. Or if you're just really in love with the Reaver skin or the Prime skin, this game is about having fun, so do that if you have more fun with those. But try to switch to the Phantom. If you're trying to rank up and you're trying to be better, the Phantom is the most consistent weapon. And when we're fighting the law of averages, we want to be as consistent as possible. So gotta use the Phantom, man. Gotta use the Phantom. It's better. Everybody says it's better. Everybody. But that's it for this video. Just remember, run and gun with SMGs. You're not expected to win these rounds, but it's good to, when you are light buying, just get a couple of 2 to 3 kills to try to force the enemy team to keep buying so their economy isn't like building up over time. That's really the only goal of these light buys. Operator, high risk, high reward, super oppressive, especially on the defensive side, and Phantom over the Vandal. See you in the next video. In the next video, we're going to go over team comps, what you need to have on your team, and you know how certain agents maybe synergize with each other, as well as a ranked, specifically a ranked agent tier list, so that you know what agents to play to help you rank up in your ranked games. Because every pro that does a tier list does it based on pro play, and they haven't been in the silver streets grinding, trying to get better. So I'm going to give you a ranked tier list on how to rank up and how to build your team comps and how to fill and the agents you should learn and you should get to learn to know. That's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.